I'm Ellie Mack, and I write love stories with complicated, hard-headed women and gentle, tender-hearted men. I'm your new angst mommy. Today we're going to talk about my book, Kiss Me Thrice, a ballet romance set in the competitive world of New York City ballet.
Welcome to Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. This is a soft space to explore romance in books where no topic is too taboo. I'm your host, Casey, and this week I am sitting down with author Ellie Mack. When Ellie and I first spoke, she had no idea that I was 100% the target audience for her professional ballet romance set in New York City. Ellie and I covered so many topics in this episode, everything from mental health and relationships to high-pressure environments and self-sabotage. We also discussed the beautiful books Ellie has written that are grounded in care, communication, and growth. We also share our own experiences in the world of New York City ballet. And make sure to stay until the end to hear the beautiful love letter that Ellie wrote for her readers. To all the ballet girlies and book lovers, this episode is for you. Ellie, welcome to the Love Letters and Books podcast. I am so glad you're here.
I'm so happy to be here.
So, I was really looking forward to today's episode for a few reasons, and I just kind of want to set us up with my foundation of enthusiasm before we dive into your books, okay? One is because we connected on social media and you shared your book with me, and it was about the world of ballet. And it's a love story, it's beautiful, it has depth, it has all of these things to it. But at my core, and you did not know this when you reached out to me, I am a ballet girly, and I always have been. And so when you sent me this beautiful book set in New York City about a ballerina, I was like, does she know me? Like, does she know what I want? So just on that, were you surprised when I responded to you and was like, oh my God, this is everything I love in one book?
Yes, and that was so great because usually it's one or the other, either a ballet girly or a New Yorker. But to have both in one felt amazing.
Oh, I felt totally seen. I used to take the Q44 bus to my ballet lessons because I grew up in Queens. And then they would bus me during the school day to Manhattan to practice with a ballet company. And here's the best part of this little nerdy story. And then we're going to get into your book. I actually quit the ballet company because I felt like I was falling behind in my academics. And I was a very serious sixth grader. I was very, very stressed out. And I was like, I can't sacrifice math for ballet. And I have regretted it every day since. So on that note, Ellie, you hopefully can feel my enthusiasm for this topic and your book and your characters. So let's ship this to you because I've gotten all of my joy out of the way before we start. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the book that we're talking about today?
Absolutely. I am Ellie. I'm also a ballet girly, although I gave ballet up for college, so a little later. But it's the similar vein of choosing an academic life over the tutu life.
Why did we do that? Why did we do that, Ellie?
What a choice.
What a choice.
I mean, my feet hurt less, but at the end of the day, who needs feet?
Exactly.
So this book was kind of a return to my ballet roots. It's actually, I think, my fourth romance that I've published under this name. So not my first book, but my first ballet romance novel. And it was so nice to kind of sink back into such a familiar world and get to explore something that really has been part of my whole life from the very beginning. I don't remember a time before ballet.
That just really speaks to my heart. And I really hope that today we find the ballet girlies and they get to listen to this and really just share our joy as we talk about this. So the name of your book was Kiss Me Thrice. Even the name is just whimsical and beautiful. And can you tell us just a little bit about the plot?
Sure. So Kiss Me Thrice follows two professional ballet dancers, Lindsay Ferg and David Powers. They are dancing for the fictional New York Ballet Theater. And in this fictional New York City-based ballet company, which is definitely not an amalgamation of any real New York City ballet companies, who shall remain nameless, they are preparing for their summer season when Lindsay's regular partner gets injured and has to be recast. They are short a male dancer, so they have to pull David Powers back from a mysterious sabbatical to fill the role of Romeo opposite Lindsay's Juliet in the very important gala performance of Romeo and Juliet by the wonderful Sir Kenneth Macmillan. The issue here is that they have a little bit of a history with one another and neither of them are prepared to dance together for various reasons, but they must. It is a forced proximity, if you will, on stage in front of everybody. So the story follows the two of them as they try not to sink their ballet company or let their personal issues ruin their lives or each other.
Oh, and it was such a beautiful story. There are so many things that I want to touch on today that I'm almost a little bit nervous because I don't want to leave anything out. So no, it's so true. I was really excited about this. And I was telling my partner that I was particularly excited about this book because it just reminded me of what that all felt like and what that meant to me at that time in my life. So let's just begin at the beginning of Kiss Me Thrice. You open it up with a performance of Giselle. And this meant so much to me. I even told you on the pre-production call that, yes, I know everyone loves this ballet, but for the people listening who may not know that much about it, can you give us just like a little insight into what's going on with Giselle and why does that ballet resonate with us more than almost any other performance?
So Giselle is one of the most, I wouldn't say well-known ballet stories outside of the ballet world, but it's one of the most performed, one of the most integral pieces of work for ballet companies. It is technically a romantic ballet, as in like capital R romantic era, although it is not a romance. There is no happy ending. It's actually a ballet about power, but we'll get into that in a minute. But the basic premise is that you have this peasant girl, Giselle, who is in love with who she thinks is another peasant. His name is Albrecht. He's lying to her. He is not a peasant. He is a nobleman. He is engaged to somebody else because he is a man. So,
pretty much.
She also, unfortunately, is sick. It's interpreted in a lot of different ways, but the general usual one is that she has like some sort of heart condition. And so when she finds out that Albrecht is in fact engaged to somebody else and not a peasant, the shock of it drives her mad and kills her. So then the whole second act, she becomes a willy, which is some sort of like ethereal ghost creature, usually portrayed as a woman who either died of a broken heart or sometimes they say they like died before they got married. There's various ways of defining what a willy is, but basically a willy's purpose is to capture men and dance them to death. And so
to anyone listening, do you see why we love this story?
It's so good. And so the willies have to like dance Albrecht to death because he hurt Giselle. I mean, she does save him in the end, which I guess, like, whatever. I'm dissatisfied with that. But, I didn't write this story. I'm just using it for my own purposes.
Well, I really appreciate that summary, though. I do. I really do. And you had mentioned it's about power. And I feel like that comes up so often in relationships and it's overlooked. But,
Absolutely.
And I don't mean to make this like a TED Talk, but what do you think about the power dynamics in Giselle? Just because I feel like it's really relatable.
It is. So in Giselle, I feel like it's so easy to gloss over if you're not like very attuned to romantic era politics. But basically, Giselle is powerless. She only has a mother. There's never the mention of a father, so they don't own property. They have no power except for via marrying Giselle off to somebody who is more secure. She has another suitor, Hilarion, which is a hilarious name, first of all. He is like Albrecht's sworn enemy. There's like a whole fight. I did not get into that subplot. The Willies do kill Hilarion. R.I.P.
They're just on it. They're taking care of business. We appreciate it.
Immediately. So Giselle like risks so much for Albrecht, who is lying to her the whole time. And as a nobleman, as a lord, he is like the person who has put her in this situation in the first place. And by lying to her, he's like also damned her to this fate. So the fact that she saves him in the end actually pisses me off so much.
I love that we're talking about this, but that's really important. And for anyone who is, maybe they're hearing about Giselle for the first time, and the reason we relate to it so much is because think about the origin story and how much it applies today. It's 2025. We're recording this in the end of December, and
Mhm.
anyone listening could be like, oh yeah, that sounds familiar, that type of thing. We're not dancing men to death, but everything else that's going on, it's very relatable. And I think that it's such a moving ballet. There's so many parts of it that I don't know, they're just really emotional for me. And I was sharing in our pre-production call that for quite a while during this year I was recovering, and so I spent a lot of time in bed, and I stumbled upon Akram Khan's version of Giselle, which, again, for anyone listening, it's a particular interpretation of it. It's so
Oh,
beautiful and moving. And the best part about that was that my partner laid down next to me in bed and was like, "What are you watching?" And I explained the story. I was not as nice as you were when I was explaining the plot of Giselle. And he just laid there with me, and we watched quite a few scenes, and we were both just really moved. And it felt really beautiful to share that with someone. And it was the
yeah.
madness scene that
Mm,
the interpretation of it, we both looked at each other and were like, oh, that's kind of what this year has felt like. So it was very cathartic, right? And it's so beautiful how dance can be that for people. It's a language and you can really respond to it. It's very visceral.
yeah,
And sometimes we overlook it, right? It's
it's
not
true.
right the first thing on anyone's list. Oh, all of that means so much to me. I'm so glad we're talking about this. So that's how you opened your book. So right away, I was hooked and I was like, oh, she's speaking my language. This is so good.
And that was very much for the ballet girlies. Like, I knew that it wasn't going to be a story that everyone knows, but if you are like plugged into the ballet world, you would immediately know like where Lindsay fits into the company. You would understand exactly what the stakes are for her. You would understand like what that means for her at like a technical level, like what her skill set is. So it was a gift to the ballet girlies specifically.
It was like a little secret language. That's what I felt like. There were so many of those throughout the book. And we're going to touch on some of them because as
Mhm.
much as I told you that this book was for me, you put things in this book that I was like, she knew this is for me. So let's talk a little bit about your main character, Lindsay, because what an incredible character, an incredible story. And I feel like you gave us so much with this character. Right from the outside, you could say, oh, she's a ballerina, that's what the story is about. But it's not, it's about so much more. Can you give us a little insight as to why you wrote this character?
Yeah, I mean, as much as it's a story about a ballerina, it's a story about being 22, about trying to figure out who you are under a bunch of different pressures. It's a story about navigating obsessive compulsive disorder. It's a story about figuring out what it means to be an adult and how to decide what's important to you and what the costs of that are, as well as what the benefits are. Like, it's very much her stepping into who she can be in a world that's very prescribed.
One of the things that stood out to me in the book and in what you just said was that it's also a story about someone navigating obsessive compulsive disorder. And
Mhm.
that is almost in the top 10 of things that are often misunderstood or misrepresented in media. So,
Oh, 100%.
100%, right? I mean, and even in our just informal language, a lot, even just the term OCD, people throw it around. So when you're writing a character who is navigating this, who's in a very disciplined world, what does that look like? And what was it like for you as you're putting that into the character and writing that in and taking the care to represent it well? Can you tell me about some of those choices?
Sure. So it wasn't a choice that I made initially when I first like thought of this character in this world, but it grew out of the kind of superstitions that happen within the ballet world. because there are all of these sorts of like rituals and superstitions that ballet dancers engage in for various reasons. And I myself have obsessive compulsive disorder. I've had a diagnosis for a long time. So I'm very comfortable with that and I'm comfortable talking about it and telling other people about it. But so often I run into people who don't understand it at all and think very specific and incorrect things about what it means to have OCD. I mean, the classic is the germaphobe example, which is so overdone and like not, encompassing of what that experience is at all. But as I was writing Lindsay's superstitions and anxieties around dance, it started to like expand for me that I was like, it wouldn't be too hard to like add this into her and like make it part of her. And in fact, it ended up, I think, rounding her out and making her more interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And it really brought the reader in almost into this intimate, vulnerable, private space that I don't know. You're right. It did really round with the character and build out this story. But then it also creates an opportunity for the people in her life to either understand or misunderstand, or to have compassion or not, and to show up and love her in that way. So, can you touch on that just for a minute? Because that's a choice too, right? We can write characters who completely disregard it, or intimate partnerships where that's something that's understood.
Mhm. And I think the difference between the way that her sister Bailey, who is her twin sister, and then her dance partner Sean, who has lived with her since they were teenagers, the way that they treat her and interact with her in regards to her OCD versus the way David, who was learning about it for the very first time in the few months that this book spans, the way that he approaches it is very different. I feel that Lindsay and Sean, while they have like this very, very secure friendship and they have all of this understanding between them and this trust that they've built like in the dance studio and outside of it, he is still too careful with her in a lot of ways and protects her from things that he doesn't need to be protecting her from. And kind of on the other side of that, her sister Bailey can sometimes be too harsh with her about it and can be impatient with her. And because they share so much and have so much in common, those points of contention between them generally surface around like what they hold on to versus what they don't. One of the things that Lindsay has a very, very hard time with is letting go of negative situations. She has a really, really, really tough time moving past hurt, which Bailey is not super understanding of at times. Whereas David, who was learning all of this like fresh from the beginning, and she doesn't share her diagnosis with him for a very long time. So he's kind of seeing these things without that label and without those preconceived notions and is exploring them, I think, alongside Lindsay more than toward her, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a different way of coming to understand how she thinks and who she is.
Yeah. I thought it was just really powerful. And it meant a lot to see that in a book and to see a partner be understanding and supportive and engaged and to have those conversations come up. And it was a character, not a caricature. And I really appreciated, I always say that on this podcast, when people touch on diagnoses or experiences that people are having, and it's not just for shock value, but they really explore it with care. That means a lot. I think it's really beautiful. One of the other things that I also noticed in your book, and maybe this was just for me, I thought this was a really beautiful moment between David and Lindsay, is when he's almost not allowing her to be small in the way when he's asking her, would your sister have been a professional? Like, you know how good you are. Would she have been at that level? And I'm not saying it exactly perfectly. I think you know what I'm talking about, the part of the
Yes.
book where he's almost asking her to step into that space and own it and say, it's not a minor thing that you've gotten yourself to this point. Not everyone can do that. Could she have done that? Like, really asking her to step into awareness of herself. And I felt like that was just such a powerful and relatable moment, whether it's ballet or whatever it is in a woman's life who is listening to this. to own the space that you take up, to be where your feet are and say, oh, I've earned this. I've worked for this. It wasn't just a fluke. It wasn't an anomaly. Like, I belong here. I don't know why that's hitting me so hard, but let's talk about that for a second. Why was that a choice to put that in this book? Because she's at a very high level. It's not a mistake that she got there.
Right. And I did want to try to like differentiate that. So one of the reasons I gave her a twin sister is for that very reason. It's not something that anyone can accomplish. Her life journey is very specific to her in particular, not just her circumstances. So she has all these people around her who grew up so similarly, but she has this thing in her that lets her perform at this level that not everybody has. And she has trouble accepting that. A lot of the plot does revolve around her trying to achieve a promotion at this company, which she doesn't think that she deserves for a long time. And some of that is company politics, which I couldn't help but include. And some of that is the self-worth issues that she has and that she's struggling with, which I feel like many people her age do struggle with. But to have an external person coming in and saying, you are different from your twin, you are different from the other people around you, you have worked really hard for this thing and you have achieved it, and you need to own that and stop hiding behind all of these things that have happened to you and start to move forward, is the kind of like firm support that I think Lindsay needs in order to excel. Like, gentle platitudes don't work on the Fern girls. This is not the place for delicacy.
Totally unrelatable, Ellie. Like, I'm sure no one listening can relate to that. No, I definitely related. I think that's another reason why this book resonated so much. And I was thinking of something else that came up as I was reading that part of the book, and just noticing that even the topic of self-sabotage, that can seem so extreme, right? We have this idea that if I'm self-sabotaging, it means I'm like actually hurting myself or I'm doing something drastic. But I thought it was really beautiful in your book how it's almost like our mind can sabotage us. We can tell ourselves this story over and over and over again and believe it. And it can direct our actions and behaviors and decisions. And so when I was thinking of self-sabotage, I was thinking, what's the third level emotion? Because self-sabotage is it's at the outer layer, but like what's underneath? And at its core, it tends to be abandonment. And someone could feel very differently for themselves, but that is what I have noticed, that it's abandonment. There's a wound around that. And the best way to ensure you get abandoned is to sabotage yourself and create that outcome. And so, well, that's not, the whole topic of your book. It's just that thing that I think a lot of us come up against of, oh, I'll pull myself out of the running, or I'll tell myself I'm not good enough first so that no one else is going to tell me, because that would hurt so much more, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it just felt really, again, like I was saying, this is a story around ballet, but it's so much more. I feel like anyone, even if someone had never had an experience with dance, could really relate to the themes in here.
Yeah, I mean, there's that whole like, if I leave David, then he can't leave me.
Oh, yeah.
If I fall apart completely and completely trash this performance, then it's in my control that I didn't get the promotion. It's not because there's some external factor preventing me from having this dream that I've been looking forward to for my whole life. So there's very much that like internal motivation in Lindsay to try to control the world around her in ways that she absolutely cannot and is super uncomfortable with.
God, Ellie, I can't believe you wrote such an unrelatable book.
Who's ever felt like that before?
No one has
Certainly.
ever felt like that. I mean, this should be categorized as fantasy. So anyway, obviously to everyone listening, I'm feeling so much about this book because it was so approachable, and I felt like these themes really touch all of us, and it was just this beautiful, almost theatrical way of looking at it. And isn't that a kinder, gentler way of looking at it than Ellie just putting a mirror up in front of all of us when we self-sabotage? At least she said it in New York. There's ballet, there's a handsome guy. Like, you made it a lot easier. You're so thoughtful.
You're
Truly.
welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one of the other things I was thinking about is you brought up age and you mentioned, well, this is also a story about being 22. And without
Mhm.
giving away the entire plot of the book, we do see characters mature in this book because they have a shared history. And on some level, there was a profound level of maturity in some of the boundaries and decisions that took place in the past. But it's almost like the processing of it changes as you age. Everyone reflects on what they did. What could I have done differently? What did I actually mean versus what I actually said and did? And I think that is something that, again, I think a lot of us can relate to and think in our own histories. There's always that moment where you almost don't want to touch the past because it's painful and you don't want to reflect on it or think about it. But we're seeing in this book the power of actually looking back and saying, have I grown? Am I still the same person? What did I really want in that moment? What did I mean? Did I communicate well? Could I have done it differently? Even including that in the book, why is that powerful to share that past history and how people have processed it since?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all a little haunted by things that we did when we were teenagers, whether they were extremely dramatic, life-changing decisions, or if it was, something silly that didn't really have a huge impact on the rest of your life and the way it plays out. And I think revisiting that and kind of working through it with the people you experienced it with when you've both had like time and space away from it is a great way to see for yourself how different you are and how much you can, change and grow in what may feel like a relatively short time. There are two like very large events in Lindsay's past that get revisited again and again. One of them is like 9 years in the past, and the other is about 4 years in the past. And she's a very different person in this book than she is during either of those incidents. But she has trouble seeing that until she talks it through with the other people who have also grown and changed. And she learns in both situations that the people she had those experiences with were having a completely different experience of those events. And so these like narratives that they've held onto for all of this time are like virtually useless because they don't match each other. So I think it's a way of peeling back those layers to get to know somebody that can be hard to even see the layers at all if you don't have a shared history.
You know, it's so interesting as we're talking about this. I'm thinking about how common it is to be almost fossilized in someone's mind from a moment in time when they experienced you, and how we do that to other people as well. And it's almost childish at times how we forget that people have probably had to pay their taxes and go grocery shopping and deal with their family and their life and work and upsets and happiness, all of these little mundane things since we've had this moment, right? And in our minds, we're almost like that bug stuck in amber forever with these people until we're willing to kind of revisit our part of it and saying, oh, am I holding on to that past version? Am I writing what I think you thought about what I thought that I did back then, which is wild, and we all do it, but I thought that was a really beautiful way of looking at this. And a little bit, I guess the words I would use are like healing and like liberating, because you've put it in this beautiful story, but we can all relate to that. Every single person listening has like fought with themselves in the shower over a conversation that they had a long time ago with someone that they might never see again. And, or maybe just me. I don't think I'm alone.
All the time.
Ellie, back me up.
All the time.
All the time. Other people do that too. But then also, what is that like to find that safety in revisiting it and saying, oh, maybe I need to bring the present in a little bit, or maybe I need to understand that I don't need to magnify it. Maybe I wasn't the villain. Maybe it wasn't so terrible. Maybe someone was just being human, right?
The ability to conceptualize of other people as full humans is so, so hard to do when you are young and still figuring out how to be a human yourself. So I feel like it's hard to even have the ability to do that until you are older, which is why you get so much like richness from hindsight
Yeah.
sometimes.
That was so beautifully said. And I was just thinking, I have a few people in my life who still don't do it. So instead of judging them, I'm going to live by example and try to do this for myself. But, as I'm saying that there was so much to this, I mean, we haven't even touched on the romance. We haven't
I
even
know.
touched on the romance at all. Cat Daddy
It's so long.
David. We're going to get to that in a second. But I think that's why I was so excited to talk to you, because I felt like you had all of these things moving through this book. It was almost like a choreographed dance because there were so many layers all at once. And yet we have this beautiful love story that is stunning in the background. It's not even in the background, it's in the forefront. I'm just saying that like all of this is going on. So I think we have to pivot. I think we have to talk about David a little
We gotta
bit. Can you tell me about him? Like, why was David your main male character?
I made David for Lindsay. She was so clear to me from the very, very beginning. Like, I got the idea for this book while I was sitting in the theater at Lincoln Center watching Romeo and Juliet. And I realized that they are off stage on opposite sides of the stage the whole time. And I was like, oh man, wouldn't it be just like so emotionally devastating if they were in love, but also fighting and couldn't talk to each other the whole show? And that was like the seed for the whole story. And Lindsay was so clear to me immediately. Like I knew who I wanted her to be and what I wanted her journey to be, but I didn't have like as clear of a picture of David for a long time. Like in like the first draft, he was just MMC. He did not even have a name because he wasn't clear to me yet. So I had to think a lot about like what kind of person would be the right person for Lindsay, and in what ways would he have to have already been hurt and have grown in order to be the person that she needs? And then at the same time, when you reverse that, how do I create a person who Lindsay can be the perfect support for? Like, what does that look like? And that was how he came to be. That's how the whole Olga subplot comes up. If you have not read the book, Olga is David's mentor. She's a retired ballerina. She has Alzheimer's, and David is her primary caretaker. So that all came about to give him patience, to give him like thoughtfulness and gentleness that you don't always see in straight male ballet dancers. Because there's this whole patriarchal issue of displaying your masculinity in a field that is looked on as girly or frilly. So to kind of steer clear of the all too common straight male toxicity in the ballet world, I was like, how do I make this particular person right for Lindsay? And that's how I grew the perfect man in my little laboratory.
I'm thinking about what elements about him that I really enjoyed. And I think it's that you offered such a well-rounded perspective of these characters. Their internal monologue is so vulnerable. And you can say, well, isn't everyone's? No, it's actually not. That was a choice. He was very vulnerable in the internal monologue that you shared. So was Lindsay. But then also we're witnessing them through these relationships that they have, relationships that have worked, relationships that have ended, relationships that have transformed. And it allowed us to have these very multidimensional characters. It was so beautiful. And then honestly, you were cracking me up because you were putting things in this book that I was like, she is a New Yorker. This is not someone who's outside of New York. Your bridge and tunnel trash talk was amazing. I was like, only people, like, I don't think everyone is going to get it, but like you did it in the exact perfect way. This is exactly how people behave. Hoboken is closer. I used to live in Tribeca. Hoboken was closer than the Upper East Side, and we would be so
For sure.
dramatic about going to Hoboken. I felt like I was going
Yeah.
to the country. It was crazy. No, it's 5 minutes away. And then, so anyway, sorry, I'm just getting like very niche
So
New
easy
York.
on the ferry. It could be The
No,
most convenient train ride. And no, if someone even breathes the word Hoboken at you, it's a fight.
it's a fight. No, I absolutely love that you included that. And then here's just my personal Casey lore. I used to work at Nice Matan on the Upper West Side, which owns French Roast, the place you kept mentioning. And as a New Yorker who also worked in like nightlife and hospitality, going to French Roast at the end of your shift is like something so many people do. It was just like very niche New York information. I loved it. You just made me so happy. I was like giggling. And I don't often feel that way when I think about New York, but there were so many moments
Right.
in your book that made me feel that way. And as you're telling me that this came to you at Lincoln Center, I just think if anyone asked me my favorite spot in all of New York, it's sitting by the fountain at night when it's all lit up there.
Ugh,
So,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Oh,
It's the best.
there's
It's
so
like
much
the
of that.
most space that you can get where there's like nothing crowding the skyline and you can actually like breathe a little easier in Lincoln Center, actually.
And there's something so romantic about it, just
Mm.
intrinsically. And when you look at it objectively, it's not. It's like concrete. There's a fountain in the middle of it. You're on a main street. There's tons of traffic, but for some reason, there's something so romantic about it. And I always think about that scene. Maybe I'm like very much dating myself here. I don't know if you've ever seen this. That film Moonstruck, when Cher gets like all dressed up and they go to the opera and he like meets her out by the fountain. Anyway, whatever.
Yes.
I don't know if
No,
you know
it's
that
like
movie.
absolutely yes.
It's just like a New York thing, and there's just that intense energy moving throughout your book that could make someone nostalgic for a place that they'd never been. So
I didn't want cartoon New York. I didn't want Hollywood New
didn't
York.
do
I
that.
wanted the place where I live, where all of my loved ones live, and like where my life happens.
Yeah, that's
So
exactly what I felt.
I personally love French Roast. They have the best honey lavender lattes you can get in the city. I will not take arguments with that. That's a fact.
Because it's facts. You don't have to argue with anyone who doesn't know. It's okay. Well, there was that choice, right? You did not set this in a fictional city. You set this in the high stakes world of New York ballet. And I want to talk about that a little bit. What are some of the things that come to mind when you think about that? I think for a lot of people, they think of Center Stage, that movie with like Zoe Saldana. And by the way, come on,
Our
like
film,
when that came out, that was such a big deal for dance girlies. Like that was just like
huge deal.
huge
I
deal.
remember
They talk to their instructors like crazy people though. Like
saying
it was insane. Anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yes.
VCR on the floor in my dance studio at like a summer intensive, one of those TV VCR combos.
I hope my sister listens to this episode because we used to take ballet classes together and then we kind of like split, went our separate ways with that. But we both just totally nerded out over Center Stage. And like when she finally does her dance at the end, it's like, it's not even that great, but you're just like, oh yeah, it was so good. Yeah. Vivid memories. Like you even saying that of like, oh, watching it on the floor, like that's exactly that like gets me right here in the heart.
Or the elder millennial ballerina.
Exactly. But tell me a little bit about that choice of choosing it to be set in New York, and what does that add to a story? It's not fake Hollywood New York, it's real New York in this story.
I really wanted to use the tension that naturally exists here because it's really similar to the tension that naturally exists in ballet. You have this very, very strong pull between control and chaos. You have like a really, really strong pull between the very rich and the very poor. There is crushing poverty in ballet. Like you would not believe. They do not pay dancers, sometimes at all, but generally just not well. And there is so much tension between the discipline of doing your same bar exercise every day versus the artistic expression needed to actually perform at a super high level as a principal dancer. And New York City is the same way. You can thrive here or you can fail so dramatically. There are crazy, unbelievably wealthy people just like walking down the street next to people who have absolutely nothing. It is just ripe with those opportunities to explore that tension. So I thought, it's a ballet book. American ballet started in New York City. The oldest American ballet companies are still here. They still exist. So if you're going to do a ballet story and you're going to do it in America, do it in New York.
It was just so beautifully done. And I really hope that anyone who picks up Kiss Me Thrice gets to immerse themselves in that feeling. Like for me, there was like a little bit of a homecoming feeling to it, but I could also imagine someone who kind of dreams of that experience of performing at a high level, of being in a major city, in all of that, the chaos and the discipline and all of it. And I felt like your book was very transporting. And
That means
really, I feel like I'm making you uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I just really liked your book.
something.
No, it really was. It's so funny. And total side note, my colleague and friend Lauren, we do a lot of work, obviously, on our work projects, but sometimes we talk about other things. We talk about creative projects. And for the longest time, she was working on this creative project and kept saying, like, oh, I don't know that I want to put that out there. I mean, who's going to pay attention to that? And I was like, the version of you from 5 years ago who didn't live in New York, who was dreaming about this. That's who you're talking to. You're talking to that person who knows deep down inside that they would trade anything for the hardest day in New York, to be a creative, to be in some type of, environment, whether it's ballet or something else, to really just be in their art. And that's why it's important for these stories to almost like plant that seed within us of like, no, that's out there. That story is out there. And whatever it is for you to go after. For me, it was to move to California and wear flip-flops all the time. So I'll admit it. That's what I wanted. I just kind of wanted to go to the beach. That was my thing. But for other people, it's something else. And I think it's really brave, whether it's my friend Lauren or it's you, writing these stories for people to really get lost in and to help process their own experiences, but also to, I don't know, to kind of take them on that trip and that life that they would want to be living, maybe. So.
And I was that girl. I mean, I grew up out west in the Rockies. I came here for the first time as a very young teenager for dance, and I had a terrible time. I am super, super blind. I did not wear contacts at the time. I broke my glasses night one. I couldn't see a thing. Like the little screw fell down into like the air vent in the hotel, and I just couldn't put them back together. So I was walking around holding the glasses to my face to get from place to place, but I couldn't do that during class. So I was doing like my whole summer intensive blind, just hoping. I didn't make a single friend. I was so lonely. And we did like this little excursion up to the top of the Empire State Building. And I'm like looking out over the city, holding my little glasses up to my face. Everyone's like on the phone to their moms, like talking about this experience. And like, I tried to call my mom and she hung up on me. So I'm just standing there. And I was like, but I still want to live here. So if I can like have this crappy of a time and still love this place, then that's worth revisiting. And I did. I came back and I haven't left.
Oh my God, that story alone, on top of the book that you wrote or books that you wrote, that story alone is so beautiful. It's very interesting. Try not to laugh, but have you ever read the book The Alchemist? I don't know if you've ever read that. Many years ago. Okay, so basically this guy goes on this journey, right? His own journey, not ballet, but everything starts going wrong. And there's that moment in your mind where you think, oh, this is the point to turn around. Everything has gone wrong. I don't feel great. This isn't what I imagined it would be. My glasses are broken and they just cannot be fixed, whatever it is for you. And there's that moment when you move through that and you see, I just want to see what happens if I don't give up. I just want to see what's on the other side of this. And that's so beautiful. And I could just feel you as you were sharing that story at the top of the Empire State Building. Oh, I just want to give you a hug. I feel so bad. That's so terrible. But like at that same time, solidifying for you that this is where you wanted to be, right?
Changed my life.
Changed your life. But like, isn't it so interesting how it wasn't the super positive, easy, good, no problems experience. It was the, oh, I want this no matter what.
Yeah. So
Mm,
I wanted to capture kind of that like even when this is like a nightmare situation and a nightmare place to live, it's worth it for some people
yeah.
to have these problems.
Ugh, what an important message. And that's what I love about books, because here we are, we have this premise of a story where it's a ballerina, 22 in New York, but there's so many other things going on in this book. You're touching on intergenerational relationships, you're touching on mental health, sibling relationships, friends, romance, all of these other things, our professional lives. And honestly, not a lot of people talk about the pressure that goes on when you're trying to pursue something at such a young age. There's not a roadmap for it. It's not like someone sits you down and is like, hey, kid, this is how you're going to handle all of this stuff. That's
Yes.
really not what happens. And so just to have an opportunity to explore that in this book was really beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, I do think like ballet in particular lends itself to making you grow up really fast in some ways and stalling your growth in a lot of others because you have to have this like singular focus to succeed at a really high level. So you have to kind of put other things aside and then you get to where you're going. And sometimes you look back and realize, okay, I'm like 23, 24, and I have no idea what would happen to me if ballet disappeared. Like, I don't know how to be a functional person in the world outside of a ballet studio, even though I am soaring through ballet world.
Wow, you really just brought something. I was just thinking of when I stopped ballet, and it happened at a really pivotal time in my life in my teen years. And you brought up a really good point, because I think for me personally at the time, ballet was the only soft thing in my life. And that can sound silly, like who needs something soft? But when you are living a life a certain way, or in a certain family dynamic, or a certain situation where there's nothing soft, nothing kind, nothing that makes you feel beautiful or special or talented, like it's the one place. Um, and you're very self-conscious about that, of not wanting to lose it and wanting to be the best and wanting to be good. And when you think about all that has to be poured into that to do that at a very high level, and my experience with ballet was that at some point the road splits, and it's like, am I doing this for fun, or am I going to take this very seriously? And then for me, I almost felt like at that point I just dropped everything. And I think I actually went through a little crash in my teenage years because of the loss of that. There was like no other area of my life where I felt that softness, that not romances and relationships, but like a romantic, I don't know, I don't think I'm finding the right word for it, but just beauty. I just didn't see that in my life. And then when that stopped, it felt like everything came crashing down. It took quite a while to recalibrate. That's just my own experience. No one else has to relate to that. I'm just sharing. And then it made me think about how powerful that was, then even reflecting back, which is why I still enjoy it so much to this day, because I just think, what, that little girl who grew up in Queens, who was listening to like Guns N' Roses on her headphones as she was going on the Q44 bus by herself at like
That's
10.
so New York.
So New
So New
York, a
York.
10-year-old on public transportation, to get to the dance studio, and trading. I was a teacher's assistant, so I could get some free classes. Like all the things that you mentioned, like the sacrifices you make, what I had to do to get shoes, because the shoes are really expensive. And I just, oh my goodness, I had no money. And then
They're more than $100 a pair. Like,
and you
it's
go
crazy.
through them. You go through them quickly. And so I feel like maybe someone can't relate to that, but I just wanted to say that as someone for whom that was a very meaningful chapter of life, your book just, I don't know, it just, I guess it healed my heart a little bit when I think about that. And it was so interesting because it was a book about someone in their 20s. I am not in my 20s, but then thinking about, oh, that just healed my little teenage heart, the one who I think would have loved to have continued to pursue that. And I really appreciate that. Obviously, that's not what you're doing anymore, but that you brought us back there. Like you dipped into your own history, into your storytelling to create these characters and bring us into this world. So do you think that that topic is going to continue? Like where does your work take you? Because there's another book after Kiss Me Thrice.
There is. It's Make It Nice, and it follows Bailey and Sean, so Lindsay's twin and her injured partner, Sean, through the exact same summer. The timelines are concurrent, they start on the same day. And it really explores that other road of what happens when you don't continue to pursue ballet. What happens when you're raised to be a ballerina and you can't, either because you don't have the desire or because you don't have the current ability, because Sean's injured. He can't dance for the whole summer. So it's really an exploration of what the other side of that choice looks like. When you have poured so much into something and you love it so much and then it disappears, who are you when that's gone? What's left? What do you make of your life when you have this void to fill all of a sudden that you were never expecting to need to fill? How do you navigate becoming a person and an adult? Because Bailey would also be 22. It's their twins. It's what's it like to be a 22-year-old who has to figure it out outside of the stage with no rigid ballet hierarchy to guide you.
Ellie, I'm so glad that you joined me today and we had all of this time to explore your work and these characters and this story. And now I'd love to shift because I always invite my guests to write and read a love letter, either to their readers or their younger self. So I would like to just turn over the floor to you and listen to your love letter.
Dear reader, when I let myself imagine you, I like to picture you tucked into a comfortable chair, a cup of tea next to you, or cozied up in bed, the reading light glowing above you, or rattling through the city on the bus or the train, dropping out of reality for a few precious moments. I picture you stealing minutes between work, cooking dinner, wrangling children and pets, or running errands. You're real to me, a human being wandering the same earth as me, navigating joys and sorrows under the same sun. And it humbles me. My breath catches when I think about you for too long. I've flung these slices of my heart out into the world like frisbees because I can't bear to hold on to them by myself any longer. Every time you catch one, it's a miracle. I can't help the storytelling. With or without you, I would write. But the experience is so much richer with you. Whether we meet 1,000 times or never, you're part of my story now, and I'm grateful for that more than I can express. From the bottom of my overfull runaway heart, thank you for being here. I hope you stick around. Love, Ellie.
Ellie, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You made me think of that younger version sitting on the bus on her way to ballet. And I just really, really appreciate that.
It's been such a pleasure to be here. This was so fun.
Oh, good. That makes me feel good. Well, for anyone listening who enjoyed our discussion, is interested in reading Ellie's books, I'm definitely going to put links in the show notes. But Ellie, I always like to ask my guests, how do you like for people to get in touch with you? Where can they kind of follow you and hear about what you are working on?
Sure. I have two main places where I am reachable. You can either follow me on Instagram, which is at Ellie Mack Books, or you can subscribe to my newsletter via my website, which my website is elliemackromancebooks.com. And there is a newsletter subscribe button. It's called Mac Attack. It comes out roughly once a month. And you can reply to that or just email Ellie at elliemackromancebooks.com, and I will get that too. Those are the two places where you can find me and my work the most easily.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And Ellie, I'm really excited that you're going to come back every single week and we're going to talk about ballet. And this is going to be
Our small ballet podcast.
our little spin-off podcast where we just yap about ballet stuff. I honestly feel like a ballet gossip podcast would be like the funniest thing ever. But
For sure.
maybe that's a side project. Who knows? But I just really enjoyed you being here. Thank you so much. And I'm just really glad we connected. Thank you.
Genuinely my pleasure. I'm so glad that this happened and it worked out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can find me on both Instagram and TikTok at Love Letters and Books. And if you're interested in being a guest on Love Letters and Books, suggesting your favorite author, or just want to write in an original love letter to yourself or someone else to be read on air, please send me an email at lovelettersandbookspodcast@gmail.com.